I appreciate the super chat, Fly Parks. Let's go to our main man, Garry Cobb, joining us from Fox 29, former Eagle himself. He joins us on the show right now here on Birds 365. Give me 1 second. Here he is joining us now, Garry Cobb. G Cobb, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Football Friday, brother?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Good to see you, G. Saw you down there this week. Happy Memorial Day weekend, too, before I jump into it. But,
that's right, yeah.
You know, here we are again. It seems every year, G, we're talking about Jalen Hurts. We're talking about a new play caller. We're talking about this. This time, I wanted to get your thoughts. This time, I thought he seemed a little bit more comfortable. Kevin Patullo's been here. He's worked with him. Did you get that sense, or am I on an island?
No, I definitely got that sense, you know. And then, of course, you know, Jalen's getting older. You know, he's been into it. But they have been together. I mean, how many years has Patullo been there where
he's been here since Nick, so this will be year 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, he's familiar with him. I'm sure that, you know, they've been talking where, you know, in key situations and things, he's talking to him. So this is not like a new personality coming in. And so I think they probably have a lot of things they already have a understanding of each other. And so with communications and everything, I think he feels good about that. And I think he probably has an idea of the way he thinks. See, and they both have an idea about the way each other think. And so I think the communication is good. And so he feels more confident now. He's already been in situations where you're in the middle of the storm with somebody, you know, which right in the middle of the game, there's a key play and you hear a certain voice. And they both, I think, have to feel better that because they've been through it before together. So I think he probably feels like this is not as new as before when you're bringing in people from outside that, you know, he doesn't know as well.
I got the sense, too, that Jalen just seemed more comfortable talking about it as well. Obviously, more used to the situation now. Gee, what's your expectation for the offense this year? You thinking a lot of change? What do you think with the new coordinator coming in here, coming off the season last year? Obviously, a historic running season. I would anticipate defenses are going to come in trying to stop that running game. What do you think for the offense this year in 2025?
Well, you know, I was listening to AJ. You know, you see AJ feel very comfortable. And you know what? Come on. As much as, you know, I can appreciate AJ coming in. He didn't say anything about, you know, he wants the ball and all that. I don't know a wide receiver, at least good ones.
You don't want one who doesn't want
the ball. They want the ball. They want, you know, so I expect them to throw more because I think of, you know, the point you just made, which is, you know, they ran the ball so much last year. I don't think that they want to put that much weight on Saquon to have him working that much, you know, because, you know, how long do you want him to play? I mean, you'd like to extend his career and things. So I could see them not running the ball as much. I think teams are going to be trying to stop their running game. So I think that is all going to work into where they end up throwing it more. Not that they're going to abandon their running game, because I don't think they're going to do that. But I think they'll probably throw the ball more often, and they'll probably be better at it because, you know, they've got another season under their belt, and I think that they'll be more comfortable making adjustments. But defense is all offseason. So you got to realize the way a lot of the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, the way they work. Whatever was the big thing last year, all of them are going in there. So everybody's going like, how can we stop this doggone Barkley? He's not going to run the ball down our throat this year. So we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they're sitting in there, they're, you know, doing got all their, you know, mock-ups, what they're looking at. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Maybe we're going to stack the box more and everything. So they've been working on that. So I expect some teams to look at what what KC did in the Super Bowl, you know, because they were effective in slowing them down and stopping them. So they're going to see what they did. And of course, just like in the Super Bowl, there is no defense that takes away everything. If a defense is strong against the run, then they are not thinking you're going to pass. So it's weak against the pass.
Yeah.
So you can't have a defense that takes away everything. So I think that it just all tells us what they're going to throw the ball more. They're going to be making adjustments. I think they're going to put more, and they've started, as you notice, they let Jalen make checks and give him a lot of responsibility. He's going to be that much more comfortable with making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. So I could see defenses are going to come in. They want to stop Barkley. They're stacking the box. There's adjustments are made at the line of scrimmage, and the Eagles getting the ball to AJ and Devontae and Dallas and all the guys. And so I see them throwing the ball more. Not that they're going to abandon the running game, but I think that their teams are going to make alignments, which is going to kind of move them and allow them to throw the ball more.
I'm just going to push back on one thing you said there, G.
Okay.
The Eagles defense was able to take away everything for about 3 quarters in the Super Bowl. So I want to say, how much, as a long-time linebacker in this league, how much did it warm your heart to see how Vic Fangio used Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, and even Oren Burks, who stepped into the playoffs and was lights out? Yeah. How much did it, especially after watching linebacker play in Philadelphia for years and years and years, to have the best linebacking room in the NFL? Nobody saw that coming. I don't care what they say. Nobody saw that coming.
You're right. But, the talk people are talking about, the linebacker is not as important and everything. Now, maybe there are not as many linebackers on the field, but the linebacker position is still just as important, because a lot of times, if anything, they put the linebackers in a tougher position now because they've got all this field to cover. A lot of times they're not in a one-on-one situation with wide receivers, but a lot of times they are in a zone position where in that area in the zone, they got to cover that guy man to man. And, if he goes deep, they got people deep, of course, but in that area, they got to be good athletes. And that's why, Zach Bond just did an outstanding job of how good an athlete he is, really. You see he's able to, cover those receivers in those areas, make adjustments. He got his hand on the ball so many times, very smart. And I think that's the big thing that showed through with him. He a lot of times he see the formation, anticipate what the other team is going to do. And a lot of times as linebackers, Nakobe Dean had a good year too. But a lot of times as linebacker, you got to know formations. You got to know what teams like to do out of certain formations. Who are they trying to get the ball to? What route does he like to run out of that formation? And so as a linebacker, you got to be smart. Not that all of them are, but the good ones are.
No. Yeah, I'd love watching old NFL films of Luke Kuechly where he'd be just calling out every offensive play.
Yep.
And those are the guys' instincts. And that, I'll follow up Jihad Campbell because, that's to me, what do you see when you look at Jihad Campbell, G? Do you see an all-Paul linebacker? Do you see an edge rusher? Because that's the problem with me. Can he handle the football IQ part of it to be that true all-Paul linebacker? You talked about Zach Bond's natural instincts versus, all right, this guy's so athletic. Maybe he's a little bit undersized, but let's try to turn him into Micah Parsons and just let him go after the quarterback.
Well, I think of course they're going to try him and they're going to let him play both spots to see what he does. But I see a guy, I think, who can do both. Being down there in Alabama, when you're in a system where, he was down there with Nick Saban for a while, the kid is a smart football player. He's been taught on a pro level, and that's the system that they were putting in down there. So a lot of the things that the Eagles are going to be talking to him about, he's already seen. And a lot of times in college now, they show and all the stuff the pros are doing, because a lot of them are emulating. A lot of them go get pro coaches to come in and run their system. So I think that that's something they looked at. That was part of what their study was. One of the reasons they got him in the first round is they think that he can do both, that he's got that capability. Now we're going to find out, but I think that he's already been exposed. I mean, he was playing off the line. He was doing more of that at Alabama than rushing the passer. He was playing off the ball. And you could see, I saw a lot of times where he's getting his hands on balls, making interceptions. So I think you got a guy that they pinpointed him because they think he can do both. And they're going to find out, depending on what other people can do. But they're going to let him rush the passer some. But I think primarily, especially depending on the Kobe Dean situation, that he could start off the season playing off the ball. And, you're in there with the guy, who knows, of course, the game very well, as we were just talking about. So he's going to have veteran players in there around him. So if he starts off inside playing off the line of scrimmage, I think he'll be fine.
Is that a risky pick to you, G Cobb, taking a tweener type of guy like that, or do you trust Vic Fangio to get the most out of him?
Well, I mean, who he was playing in Alabama? Who was he playing against? I think he was playing against the best guys coming out in the draft. They've seen him matched up against some of those guys. So, this is not if you're playing at Alabama, you're playing against the top players. So I don't think this is a huge jump. I mean, this is the pros, of course, but with the football intelligence too. They're with Nick Saban, they're showing all the looks that the pros show. So he's been exposed to a lot of the things, and that's why I think the Eagles, this is part of why they drafted him, is they expect him to be able to come out. And I was, looking at him out there, he seemed comfortable with what they were doing, even though he wasn't practicing. I think he's going to be comfortable doing everything. He's been doing a lot of these same checks, a lot of the same defenses. That's what he's been playing at Alabama, because they have multiple defenses, because you had a pro coach in Nick Saban who is coached on the pro level and everything. So I think he's seen a lot of this. So they expect him to make the adjustment. We'll see if he's able to.
Defense as a whole, G, lost a lot of productive players. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Isaiah Rodgers. We talked about Oren Burks. A lot of contributors to what was a number one defense and the Super Bowl winning team. Is it realistic to expect them to just not have any hiccups and hit the ground running and Vic cures all? And because all of a sudden, we just talked about Jahad Campbell, rookie, but they're counting on a bunch of young players who haven't played a lot. Kaylee Ringo at corner. Moro Jomo inside. Some of these prove it players at edge. Andrew Makuba at safety is a rookie. That's a lot of moving parts, even for Vic Fangio.
I think so. From looking at them last year, though, when we saw, what happened last year. So the way that they did such a great job, and it was not only Vic, but his assistant coaches, they did a great job of teaching and developing those players throughout the season. So I'm confident they'll do it again, but I don't think that they're going to start out that way. I think there are going to be some bumps in the road. It's going to get rocky a little bit there, probably at the start, as guys are learning the system and getting so comfortable with it. But I expect them to make the adjustment. I saw them do it last year. But we're going to see. But the most important thing I think that I'm going to be looking for is, can they get to the passer? See, because if they got pass rushers that can get there with, of course, Moro Jomo, can he do it consistently? Can he get pressure inside? Jalen Hunt coming off the corner. Nolan Smith, was what he did last year, was that just something that we don't see again this year? Is he going to wear down because of his, size and things? So, those are going to be some interesting things. But getting to the quarterback, can you do that? Can you beat a one-on-one block? Because people are going to be looking at Carter and double teaming him. But can they beat those one-on-one blocks where you get consistent pressure? I think that's the most important thing. I think they're going to be able to make the adjustments in the secondary. You got some guys that I think are capable of getting the job done. Some of the times that they got a chance to play, I liked what I saw. So I think they'll be all right. But they've got some adjustments to make. Makuba, you're going to try to throw him right in there. I don't know. We will see. he's going to have an adjustment period where, the NFL, you got all these guys that can run. You got so many guys that got some big receivers that he's going to have to deal with. So he's got adjustments to make. That whole crew is going to have adjustments to make. But I think over time, I think they'll be okay. But we'll have to wait and see. Vic is going to have to work his magic on these guys, and it won't be easy. There are going to be some bumps in the road. So I think they're going to start out rocky, but hopefully they get it together before the season's over.
Yeah, I think they will, JAKIB. JAKIB, a lot of talk about the coordinators. Let's talk about the head of the snake. Nick Sirianni gets his extension this week. I think we all expected it to come. Obviously, he's been very successful in his first 4 years. What is Nick Sirianni to you, JAKIB? The conversations around him are very interesting to me. When you look at the accolades and the records and everything he's accomplished, it's pretty hard to believe. What is Nick Sirianni to you, Jay?
Well, I think the big thing, Nick, is to me is I see a guy learning on the job. I see a guy getting better. You can see his confidence just in the news conference from when he started. You see a guy growing in the job. And I give him a lot of credit because he hasn't been the kind of guy that is not willing to admit it. I mean, he's kind of admitted, hey, I'm learning. And I think that the thing that I like the most about Nick is I see the relationship with the players. He's going to be honest with those guys and tell them, look, this is what we got to do. And talking to an individual player and tell them, hey, look, you got to do this better. And being honest with the players. And he developed relationships with these guys where they believe in Nick. They don't. I don't hear them say anything about how he's being dishonest with them. And I think he has developed a relationship with the players. He has to where they're willing to go to battle for him because he's honest with them. He hasn't. He's made mistakes. We've seen him where mostly, let's say, he gets out of control there on the sideline and things, but he's being himself. And so I can appreciate a guy like that. And I see the players, they like Nick. I mean, they might not like everything he does, because sometimes, I mean, he's going to chastise guys and call it the way he sees it, where they got to improve in a certain area. But I like the way that he's developed relationships with them. He's got genuine relationships where he's honest with them about how they're playing and what he wants, and being straight up with them about what they need to do. And I like some of the things the way they do things. Like even they're in the auditorium. I look up there at what they're talking about. They're saying, man, and the thing they're stressing is we force turnovers, but we take care of the football ourselves. Where they got the thing up there in the auditorium, and meaning that, look, this is the way we're going to win. And then I see the way they start our practice. I see the guys on defense over there punching the ball out and everything, and how that helped them last year, and how these young guys bought into that. And, I got a lot of good things to say about Nick. Now, like I said, he's not perfect, but then he's not lying about it and trying to hide that, saying he's the perfect coach. But he knows he needs to get better. But he's in there with all the guys. And I would love playing for a guy like Nick because he's honest with you. If you didn't play well, he's not going to be, lying to you. But at the same time, he cares about you. But look, you're not here because I care about you. You're here because you're playing well, and you got to play well. You got to get the job done. I can't ask anything more than that of a coach. He's honest with the guys, and I hear the guys talking, and I talk to other guys. They appreciate. Nick will tell you the truth, man. Hey, look, dude, you got to play better, or you're not going to be here. I mean, how could you ask for anything better? And he's honest with them, and I think he's done a good job. So he's really bonded with his players, and they play hard for him. I don't think you could ask anything more than that for a coach.
On-field OTAs are going to start next week. Little off the beaten path with you here. Want to tap into your decade plus in the NFL. I would say I've been covering. I'm old. I've been covering this league for way too long.
Join the party.
Yeah, about 30 years, and I always say I didn't learn to watch practice till about 10 years in. About your playing career, a little bit more, your entire playing career before I talked to enough people, and they taught me how to evaluate practice. As a former player, do you ever roll your eyes when you see people paying attention to Jalen Hurts' completion percentage, or tell the viewers what you're doing at practice, what you're trying to accomplish at practice. It's not a game, it's practice. Let's go Allen Iverson on people. It's practice.
Well, the Eagles, they don't even let us, get a look at too much of the practices.
But what they do in training camp, and and you'll see all the the tweets and the stories about basically so-and-so intercepted this. Yeah. I remember when Doug was here, they used to have 10-10-10 practices. So, and they would have to educate people that, look, the defense is serving the offense in this period. The offense is serving the defense in this period.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, just, the whole game aspect of, people taking it, you're trying to get better.
That's right. That's right. Well, the thing I like to see it in the practice is a lot of the one-on-one, when you get some of the best players where they got to, times in the pass rush drills, of course, you've got these guys battling with each other. Other times in the one-on-one drills with the pass routes, you get a chance to see guys match up against each other. And even with that, a lot of times you're not totally one-on-one with a guy. You got help, let's say inside, or you got help deep. And so it's not where you're in one-on-one all the time. So, but you get a chance. I like getting a chance to see the guys battle in situations where they're kind of in one-on-one. And then to see the adjustments, that are made, which a lot of times in practice, is not really all like game situations. But I guess that's the best thing that I enjoy seeing, is the one-on-one situation and seeing the guys how they match up then, because a lot of the other things they're getting in defenses and they're doing things that unless you know all of what they're going to do in an upcoming game and things, you can't really make evaluations as much, because you don't know the whole situation of what they're doing, you don't know all the calls. But I do like to see the one-on-one situations, because I think you get a chance to see players and how good they are and how good their fundamentals are in those situations.
Jay, last year was a historic year for this football team. And you look at what they did in the offseason last year. All right. Saquon Barkley, Vic Fangio, Cooper DeJean, Quinion, Zach Bond, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Mekhi Becton, all massive contributors to a team that just dominated on their way to a Super Bowl victory. What do you think so far what Howie's done this year? I know obviously we can't grade it like we can last year. This season hasn't happened, but just your thoughts on kind of what Howie's done to retool some of the losses and get ready for a chance to, try and go compete for a Super Bowl again.
Well, of course, when it comes to the free agency, he hasn't made the type of acquisitions he made last year. But, of course, they got, an offense that really is pretty much, are ready to go. They got all these guys coming back. So offensively, the big thing is defensively. So the thing that I'm going to be looking at are these draft picks. They need these kids to mature and be able to help them in this first year. And so seeing how, Makuba, can he help them right now? Of course, Campbell, we talked about him, can he get healthy to where he gets in there and he starts getting some reps? And we'll see, because we know as an athlete, from what I've seen of him already, I already know he's good enough athlete, to help them. But can he help them where he's able to process all the information of what he's going to be doing? Like if he were playing off the ball, can he make the adjustments they need to make on each down? Can he read the coverages? I mean, the routes, and be able to do what he needs to do. Of course, if he can rush the passer, that's just something that's kind of a one-on-one type of situation. We'll see how good he is at that. But the big thing I want to see is I want to see him playing off the ball. Can he play there and help them in his first year? Can he make the mental adjustments that need to be made? That's going to be a big thing. And the same thing with Makuba, because the different coverage. So a lot of it's mental. Got to be in the right place. You got to know the coverage. You got to know the adjustment when the guy goes in motion. And those type of things. Of course, Ty Robinson is going to be a big thing. Can he help them? Can he give pass rush pressure? Up the middle. Can he be effective there? Can he make them to where he can beat a one-on-one block there inside and get pressure on the quarterback? Those are going to be key things. Can any of these young kids help them in this first year? Because they need the help, man. They got to get pressure on the quarterback. That's what left there. That left. Some of that left with those other guys signing elsewhere. And if they can't, then that eventually I don't care who's in the secondary. If you don't get pressure on the quarterback, a good team was going to come in and they're gonna slice you up some. If you're not getting pressure on that quarterback. So can these guys beat the block? And some of the other young kids that J-Lex Hunt, I want to see. Was he legit last year? Meaning like does he make a step? Moro Ojomo. I want to see what he does. And I'm going to be looking at those guys, because if they can get pressure on the quarterback, then these boys are going to have another chance to win again, I think, because the offense is already there. And I think the offense is going to get better because they're playing with each other again another year. And I expect Jalen to get better. So that I think the passing game is going to get better. And then you still got that running game to deal with. So the offense, I think I feel confident about them. But defensively, that's where, we're going to find out. And I think the big thing is the pass rush pressure. You cannot let a guy back there, or these good quarterbacks will chew you up. I don't care who you got out there covering the guy. If he's getting too much time, you can't stop people. So can they get pressure on the quarterback? And so I'll be eyeballing those guys, man. Ty Robinson, man, they need help from you, dude. Can you give them the help?
4th round pick, G, year 1. It's a big ask.
That's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
Think
about how long it took Milton to become Milton. Yeah.
I know.
Sometimes it takes some time.
I know.
At Garry Cobb, make sure you follow G Cobb on the X platform. Locally, you can check him out at Fox 29 with our friends over there, gcobb.com. Make sure you check out his website. I don't want to talk about it, but I got to talk about it. People want to hear from you. This damn tush push, I'm so glad it's over. 50 plays a year, they run it, G. You were down there. AJ was sort of like, come on. It's 1 yard. Jordan Mailata was like, all right, we won't push. I got the feeling that from the player's perspective, it's like, hey, you know what? We're effing good. We got a great offensive line. We got a quarterback who can squat 600 pounds. This is not the reason we're good. But they branded this thing up to this point where everybody wants to talk about it, G.
Yes. Yeah,
Your thoughts, so there's the platform. Your thoughts on the damn tush push.
Well, I thought it was going to be adios. I'm surprised that it made it.
Yeah,
through.
we all did. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think that they'll continue to utilize the play. I can see where they're adding things to it, where they're going to give people different looks to where, you think they're getting ready to do the tush push and they end up doing something else to keep teams honest. But I think that, they still have, a good offensive line. They're able to come out. They'll be able to utilize that same play and with the same people there, so they're going to score, quite a bit off of it. And they're going to make adjustments to give other people things to think about. So I just hate that it seems like it just takes away from how good the Eagles are. They got an outstanding offensive line, and that's the big thing. It's not that just they got this little gimmick play, that gets them over. They got good athletes, they got good football players, and that's the reason that they got a Super Bowl ring, and they'll be trying to get another one.
Yeah.
Good stuff, JAKIB. We appreciate you joining in here on a football Friday before Memorial Day, brother. Big weekend. So I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, one that we honor the great people that allowed us to sit here and talk about football every single day. G, we appreciate you joining in today, brother. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, man.
All right. Have a good one. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Thank you, Gary. There's Garry Cobb joining us here on Birds 365, a Football Friday edition of the show as we lead you into Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, as I just mentioned there, Memorial Day weekend. It's a big one, everybody. All right. We always got to pause to honor the brave men and women that gave their lives in service of our country. Freedom is not free, everybody. And we talk about football every day. So we appreciate those people. We'll take off on Monday for that. Johnny Mac, thought JAKIB was great today, man. We hit on everything kind of in the offseason. I thought he articulated some things really well today.
Yeah. And he's the same place where I am. I'm most concerned about the edge rushing, the pass rushing situation, because that's the one where I'm like, all right, if things are going to go wrong, where are they going to go wrong? And that's where I land. And, the Eagles have potential answers, but, usually it's pretty, again, it's a first world problem because this team's so talented, but usually you can look at an NFL team and say, all right, they're weak here, they're weak there. The Eagles have some guys who could turn into big time players like Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. I'm conflating the two. And even Azeez Ojulari and the name people don't like to speak of, who I won't bring up again. They have some potential answers, but they also have some potential avenues to where it bottoms out and becomes a real bad situation. And I can't think of another position where that's the case. You can say corner, but you still have Mitchell, you still have DeJean. You can say safety, but you still have a steady presence in Reed Blankenship. Edge, it could go bad. Especially if Nolan Smith, I thought G brought up, can he hold up for 17 games? People say, why would you say that?
Yeah,
well,
right.
Think about it. He played basically full-time starter snaps for 9 weeks. The 9th week was the Super Bowl. If that were week 9 of the NFL season and you tear your triceps, you're out for the season. That's why people are saying that. So that G and I are on the same page. That to me is the biggest issue with this team heading into on-field OTAs next week.
A lot of pressure too on those rookies, man. You heard JAKIB talking about those rookies stepping up, boy. That's an uphill battle, John, to expect some of those rookies to be able to contribute at that level. But I don't think he's wrong. If they want to repeat, that might be necessary.
Yeah, some. Jihad, because of the injury, probably push it back. You got to be a little bit more
so Makuba, right?
Oh, yeah, because he's going to be in the mix from day one. So you can't push things back. Now, the good part about that is you should have competition, and if it's not the worst thing in the world if he pushes Sidney Brown and Sidney Brown wins the job. But one of them's got to play well. And it might have to be Makuba.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle. Also on Ty Robinson there too. And I'm with Gary. I think Ty Robinson has to be a contributor this year. And that's a big ask for a 4th round draft pick, man. It really is.
Well, I think at what level? Like if he's the 4th defensive tackle.
Well, can he be what Moro Ujoma was last year?
Yeah,
is that too big?
No, I think that's fine. That's fine. But if he's expected to be more, Moro 300 snaps somewhere in that range, Can he be a contributor? Yeah, I think so. But if it's more than like Morrow's got to step into the Milton Williams role, can he do that? To me, that's a bigger question. Like I'm fine with guys like Ty Robinson being the fourth man in a rotation. Guy like Jalix Hunt, if he's the fourth in the edge rotation, that's fine. That's actually good. But now they're being, labeled into. Well, you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. We've talked ad nauseum about Jordan Davis's role. So you almost have three starters inside. Morrow's got to step up into that Milton role, in theory.
Right.
And if Jalix Hunt has to start opposite Nolan Smith because the other guys fail, that's a big jump. So, I'm very comfortable with Moro Ajomos, the fourth defensive tackle, as the second or third.
Right. Yeah. It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
We'll see how it all shakes out. Johnny Mac, great week of shows this week.